Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, watching the screen that showed burning ships around New Haven Colony. The attack had started 3 hours ago, and already 200,000 humans were dead. He gripped the metal, rail so hard his knuckles turned white. This was the 15th human colony attacked this year by the Galactic Hegemony. Captain Lisa Bennett walked up to him holding a datapad with shaking hands. She had been trying to make peace with the aliens for 3 years now. Every treaty she signed got broken within months. Every compromise humans made only led to more demands from the Hegemony Council. "Sir, the final count is in," she said quietly. 212,000 civilians are gone. The Hegemony ships left nothing behind. They even destroyed the schools and hospitals. Morrison felt something cold settle in his chest. The aliens called it territorial correction, but everyone knew it was genocide. The Hegemony wanted human space, and they were willing to kill every man, woman, and child to get it. Dr. Alex Carter burst through the bridge doors with more bad news. His research team had been tracking Hegemony movements for months. The pattern was clear now. They were not just taking human colonies anymore, they were wiping them out completely. "Admiral, we have intercepted their communications," Carter said breathlessly. "The Hegemony Council has ordered something they call the final solution for human space. They plan to eliminate every human settlement in the galaxy within 6 months. The bridge went silent. Every officer on the Liberty knew what this meant. Humanity was facing extinction, and the aliens did not care about treaties or negotiations anymore. They wanted humans gone. Commander Ryan Davis stepped forward with the latest message from the Hegemony. His face was grim as he read from the transmission. "All human forces must evacuate the Outer Rim territories within 72 hours. Any human ships found in disputed space after the deadline will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is an order from your superiors." Morrison looked around at his crew. These were good people who had joined the fleet to explore space and protect colonies. They had never wanted war. For 50 years, humans had been the peacekeepers of the galaxy. They shared technology, freely helped other species solve problems, and always looked for peaceful solutions to conflicts. But the aliens had mistaken human kindness for weakness. They thought because humans preferred talking to fighting that humans could not fight at all. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lieutenant Sam Park was monitoring communications from other human fleets. The reports coming in were all the same. Attacks on colonies, demands for evacuation, and threats of total war if humans did not submit. The Hegemony was moving fast to finish what they had started. "Sir, we are getting messages from Admiral Cooper, Admiral Brown, and Admiral Clark," Park reported. "All human fleets are requesting orders. They want to know if we are going to fight back or keep running." Morrison walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each of his officers. These people had families on human worlds. They had friends and loved ones who were now targets for alien genocide. The time for being nice was over. Captain Bennett stepped up beside him. She had lost her husband in the first Hegemony attack 3 years ago. Her daughter was on Earth waiting for her mother to come home. If the aliens had their way, that little girl would never grow up. "Admiral," Bennett said firmly, "we have tried everything. We offered them mining rights, scientific exchanges even, shared territories. They responded by killing our people. There is nothing left to negotiate." Dr. Carter activated his research data on the main screen. It showed human colonies across the galaxy and the pattern of Hegemony attacks. Red dots marked destroyed settlements. Yellow dots showed colonies under threat. Green dots were the few remaining safe worlds, and even those were not safe for long. "The mathematical projection is clear," Carter explained. "If current attack patterns continue, humans will be extinct within 8 months. We cannot run fast enough or far enough to escape them. They have more ships, more weapons, and they are coordinated across multiple star systems." Commander Davis pulled up tactical displays showing human military assets. For 50 years, humans had built exploration ships, research vessels, and defensive platforms. But hidden in the civilian infrastructure was something the aliens had never suspected. Human military technology that had been kept secret for generations. "Sir, the sleeping giant protocols are ready for activation," Davis said quietly. "Every human ship station and settlement has hidden military capabilities. We have been preparing for this possibility since humans first went to space. The question is, do we use them? Morrison thought about his daughter Katie, who had died in the New Geneva massacre 2 years ago. She had been a teacher helping alien children learn human languages. The hegemony had killed her anyway because she was human. That was the only crime any of these people had committed. The admiral looked at the tactical display showing human fleets spread across known space. Each ship carried families who trusted their government to protect them. Each colony held millions of people who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. All of them were now facing death because aliens had decided humans did not deserve to exist. Lieutenant Park received another message from the hegemony. This one was broadcast on all frequencies, so every human in space could hear it. The alien voice was cold and mechanical, as it delivered what was clearly meant to be humanity's death sentence. Human creatures, your species has contaminated enough of the galaxy. You have 48 hours to begin evacuation of all territories beyond your home system. Any resistance will result in immediate extermination. You have been judged inferior, and your removal is necessary for galactic harmony. The bridge crew looked at their admiral, waiting for orders. They all knew this moment would eventually come. Humans had always been different from other galactic species. While aliens fought over territory and resources, humans had focused on exploration, science, and peaceful cooperation. But human history was full of examples of what happened when peaceful people were pushed too far. Morrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice would reach every human ship, station, and colony in known space. The next words he spoke would change everything. All human military commanders, this is Admiral Morrison. Effective immediately, Operation Thunder is authorized. Activate all sleeping giant protocols. The time for negotiation has ended. The aliens want a war, and we are going to give them exactly what they asked for. The bridge erupted in controlled activity as officers began implementing orders that had been planned for decades but never used. Across human space, civilian ships began revealing hidden weapon systems. Research stations activated defensive grids that had been disguised as scientific equipment. Even farming colonies started powering up military hardware that had been built into their infrastructure. The war had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had worked so hard to avoid it. The galactic hegemony had made their biggest mistake in assuming they understood humanity. For 70 years, they had watched humans build gardens on space stations, explore distant worlds, and always choose diplomacy over violence. The aliens had concluded that humans were naturally weak and incapable of real warfare. They were about to discover how wrong they could be. Colonel Beth Taylor sat in the command center of Luna Base, watching status reports flood in from across human space. The sleeping giant protocols were activating faster than anyone had expected. Within 6 hours of Admiral Morrison's order, every human installation in the galaxy had transformed from civilian infrastructure into military assets. The cargo ship Peaceful Trader near the hegemony border suddenly deployed weapon arrays that had been hidden in its hull for 20 years. The mining station at Asteroid Belt Sigma activated defensive systems that the aliens had thought were ore processing equipment. Even the agricultural colony on New Eden revealed that their farming equipment included military-grade sensors and communication arrays. Captain Nick Phillips commanded the first human strike force to launch a counterattack. His target was the massive hegemony shipyard at Kepler Station, where the aliens had been building what they called purification fleets. These were ships designed specifically to hunt down and destroy human colonies. Phillips had served in the human exploration fleet for 15 years. He had helped establish first contact with 12 different species and had never fired a weapon in anger. But his brother had died at New Haven 3 days ago, along with his wife and 2 children. The time for exploration was over. The human attack fleet consisted of 30 ships that looked like standard research vessels and cargo haulers. The hegemony defenders at Kepler Station detected them approaching and sent a standard warning to leave the area. They expected the humans to turn around and run like they always had before. Instead, the human ships opened fire. The aliens had never seen weapons like these. Human military technology had been developed in complete secrecy for generations. While other species fought wars with energy beams and missile systems, humans had created something entirely different. Their weapons used principles that the Hegemony Science Council had declared theoretically impossible. The first human salvo tore through the hegemony defense grid like it was made of paper. Alien ships that had dominated space battles for centuries were reduced to scrap metal in seconds. The hegemony commanders could not understand what was happening to their forces. Marine Sergeant Amy Brooks led the boarding parties that captured 3 hegemony command ships intact. Her team moved through the alien vessels with precision that terrified the survivors. The humans did not waste time on interrogation or threats. They simply took what they wanted and left the aliens alive but helpless. Brooks had lost her parents in the first hegemony attack 3 years ago. She had joined the Marines hoping to prevent more attacks through peaceful deterrence. Now she was using skills that human military planners had been teaching in secret for decades. Skills designed for one purpose, which was winning wars that could not be avoided. The attack on Kepler Station lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the hegemony's primary shipyard was completely destroyed, along with 43 warships, and their entire command structure for the sector. Human losses were 0. Dr. Alex Carter analyzed the tactical data from the battle while it was still happening. His research team had been tracking alien military capabilities for years. The 4 results confirmed what human strategists had always suspected. The hegemony was powerful because they had never faced serious opposition, not because they were actually superior warriors. The aliens fight like they are playing a game with rules, Carter reported to Admiral Morrison. They expect their enemies to use the same tactics and technologies they do. They have no defense against weapon systems they do not understand. Commander Ryan Davis coordinated the second wave of human attacks across multiple star systems. Reports were coming in from dozens of locations where human forces had engaged hegemony fleets. The pattern was the same everywhere. Complete human victory with minimal losses. The aliens had based their military doctrine on intimidation and overwhelming force. They were used to enemies who surrendered when faced with superior numbers. Humans did not surrender, and their technology made hegemony numerical advantages meaningless. Lieutenant Sam Park monitored alien communications to track their response to the human counterattack. The hegemony command channels were filled with panic and confusion. Their military leaders could not explain how human civilian ships were destroying their best warships. "Sir, the aliens are pulling back from all forward positions," Park reported. "They are requesting emergency reinforcements from their core systems. It looks like they are preparing for a major defensive operation." Admiral Morrison studied the tactical displays showing human victories across the galaxy. Each successful operation revealed more hidden human capabilities. Ships that had explored peaceful worlds for decades were proving to be more advanced than anything the hegemony had in their arsenal. Captain Lisa Bennett coordinated the rescue operations at former human colonies. Now that hegemony forces were retreating, human ships could reach settlements that had been under siege for months. What they found confirmed the worst fears about alien intentions. "Admiral, the colonies were not just attacked," Bennett reported, with controlled anger. The hegemony was systematically destroying everything humans had built: libraries, schools, hospitals, even art galleries. They wanted to erase every trace that humans had ever existed. The human response escalated accordingly. If the aliens wanted to fight a war of extinction, they would get one. But it would be their extinction, not humanity's. Colonel Taylor activated Phase 2 of the Sleeping Giant protocols. This revealed even more hidden human capabilities, including weapons platforms that had been disguised as deep space research stations. These installations had been watching alien movements for decades while pretending to study cosmic phenomena. The hegemony had built their empire by conquering species that fought traditional wars with predictable tactics. They had never encountered an enemy that had spent generations preparing for conflict, while appearing completely peaceful. Human military doctrine was based on ending wars quickly and decisively with technology that enemies could not counter. Captain Phillips received orders for his next mission, which was the complete destruction of hegemony fleet bases in the Rigel sector. His ships would appear to be standard human transports until they reached their targets. Then they would deploy weapons that would make the Kepler Station attack look like a minor skirmish. The war was only 3 days old, but the balance of power in the galaxy had already shifted completely. The species that everyone had dismissed as peaceful farmers and scientists had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous military force in known space. Sergeant Brooks and her Marines were preparing for the next phase of operations, which involved capturing hegemony leadership alive. The aliens needed to understand that human mercy was still possible, but only if they surrendered completely and immediately. The galaxy was learning a lesson that human history could have taught them. The most dangerous enemies are not those who love war, but those who hate it enough to become very good at ending it quickly. Humans had avoided conflict for 50 years, not because they were weak, but because they understood exactly how destructive they could be when they stopped being nice. The awakening was complete, and the hegemony was about to face the full consequences of their decision to threaten human extinction. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was held on Sanctuary Prime, a neutral world that had hosted peace negotiations for over 200 years. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had gathered to address what they were calling the human crisis. The species that had been galactic peacekeepers for half a century had become a military force that was reshaping the balance of power across known space. Ambassador Claire Watson stood before the assembled alien delegates carrying a simple data pad that contained evidence of 3 years of systematic attacks on human colonies. She had been Earth's chief diplomatic representative for 12 years, and had always believed that problems could be solved through negotiation and compromise. The hegemony had taught her otherwise. Representative Vex Ka of the Galactic Hegemony demanded immediate council intervention against what he called human barbarism. His species had controlled large sections of the galaxy for over 1,000 years through military dominance and political manipulation. In 2 weeks, human forces had reduced their empire to a collection of isolated defensive positions. The human creatures have violated every principle of civilized warfare, Vexka declared to the council. They use weapons that ignore established military protocols. They attack without warning and show no mercy to defeated enemies. The council must authorize joint action to contain this threat before they destroy galactic civilization. Ambassador Watson activated her data pad, and the central display screen showed the destroyed remains of New Haven Colony. The images were stark and terrible. Burned cities, empty schools, and hospitals that had been deliberately targeted. The evidence was clear that the hegemony had not been fighting a war but conducting genocide. Council members, you are looking at the remains of a human agricultural colony that was home to 200,000 civilians, Watson said in a calm voice. The attack occurred without warning and without provocation. Every human settlement you see here was destroyed, not captured. The hegemony did not want our territory, they wanted us extinct. She changed the display to show 15 other human colonies that had suffered similar fates. Each attack followed the same pattern. Complete destruction of civilian infrastructure and systematic elimination of the population. The evidence was overwhelming that this had been planned genocide, not territorial expansion. The council members shifted uncomfortably as they reviewed documentation of broken treaties and ignored peace negotiations. For 3 years, human diplomats had offered compromises and concessions. The hegemony had responded by escalating their attacks and making increasingly impossible demands. General Frank Murphy stepped forward to present the military analysis. He had commanded human defensive forces for 20 years and had always focused on protection rather than aggression. The hegemony attacks had forced humanity to reveal capabilities that had been kept secret since humans first traveled to space. Council members, the human military response has been precisely calibrated, Murphy explained. We have targeted only hegemony military assets and strategic installations. 0 civilian casualties have resulted from human military action. We have demonstrated restraint that our enemies did not show us. The tactical displays showed the results of human counterattacks across multiple star systems. Hegemony military bases had been neutralized with surgical precision. Their fleets had been destroyed or captured intact. Their command structure had been eliminated without causing harm to civilian populations on hegemony worlds. Lieutenant Colonel Dana Price activated additional displays showing human military capabilities that had been hidden for generations. Ships that appeared to be civilian transports revealed advanced weapon systems. Research stations deployed defensive grids that had been disguised as scientific equipment. Even agricultural colonies showed military infrastructure that had been integrated into farming operations. The human species has been preparing for large-scale conflict since we first left our home system, Price explained. We hoped we would never need these capabilities, but we understood that peaceful species must be prepared to defend themselves against those who are not peaceful. Ambassador Watson outlined the human position with simple clarity. Complete hegemony. Withdrawal from all human territory. Reparations for destroyed colonies. Formal recognition of human sovereignty over claimed space. War crimes trials for hegemony leadership responsible for genocide. The demands were not negotiable because humanity had learned that negotiation with the hegemony was meaningless. Every treaty had been broken. Every compromise had led to more demands. The only language the aliens understood was overwhelming force. Representative Zox Prime of the Stellar Federation asked the question that every council member was thinking. Ambassador Watson, how do we know that humans will stop their military expansion once hegemony forces withdraw? Your species has demonstrated capabilities that could threaten every civilization in the galaxy. Watson smiled with an expression that made several alien delegates step backward. It was not a threatening smile, but it was absolutely confident. Council member humans have no interest in conquest or empire. We want to explore space conduct research and live in peace. But we will never again allow any species to threaten our existence. She activated a new display showing human fleets massing at the edge of hegemony core systems. The numbers were staggering. Thousands of ships that had appeared to be civilian vessels had revealed themselves to be advanced military platforms. The force assembled could overwhelm any defense the hegemony could mount. We are not making demands, Watson continued. We are stating terms. The hegemony has 48 hours to accept complete surrender and begin withdrawal from human space. If they refuse, we will finish what they started. Vexka hissed in outrage and demanded to know by what authority humans claimed the right to issue ultimatums to their superiors. His species had dominated the galaxy for millennia, and he could not accept that inferior creatures could challenge hegemony supremacy. Ambassador Watson turned to face the hegemony representative directly. Her voice remained calm, but every word carried absolute certainty. By the authority of superior technology, overwhelming military force and moral justification, you declared war on humanity, and now you face the consequences of that decision. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The species that had been galactic peacekeepers for 50 years had become the dominant military power in known space. They had hidden their true capabilities while building an empire based on exploration and scientific advancement. Dr. Alex Carter presented the final piece of evidence that explained how humans had achieved such rapid military success. Hidden research programs had been developing advanced weapons and defensive systems for over a century. Every human ship station and colony had been built with dual-purpose technology that could instantly transform civilian infrastructure into military assets. Council members' human civilization has been designed from the beginning to avoid warfare through strength, Carter explained. We have always preferred peaceful solutions, but we have never been unprepared for war. The hegemony made the mistake of assuming that peaceful people are weak people. General Murphy outlined the next phase of human military operations if the hegemony refused to surrender. Strike forces would target every military installation in hegemony space. Their fleets would be destroyed, their command structure eliminated, and their ability to threaten anyone would be permanently removed. The other galactic species watched in stunned amazement as humans demonstrated what happened when a truly advanced civilization was forced to abandon peaceful methods. The creatures who grew flowers and wrote poetry had transformed into an unstoppable military force that could reshape the galaxy according to their will. Ambassador Watson delivered the final message to the council and to the hegemony representatives, who would carry word back to their leaders. Humanity offers this one opportunity for peaceful resolution. Accept our terms and this war ends with hegemony survival. Refuse and face complete destruction. The choice is yours, but you have 48 hours to make it. The revelation was complete and the galaxy understood that everything had changed forever. The Hegemony Council rejected human surrender terms with arrogant defiance that sealed their fate. They could not accept that inferior species could dictate conditions to their ancient empire. Representative Vex Ka transmitted their final response to human forces with words that would haunt galactic history forever. The galactic hegemony does not negotiate with lesser creatures. Human forces will withdraw immediately or face total annihilation. We have ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, and we will not surrender to primitive beings who barely understand space travel. Admiral Ben Cooper received authorization for Operation Thunderstorm 30 minutes after the hegemony rejection arrived. He had been planning this offensive for 6 months while hoping he would never need to execute it. The operation would demonstrate to every species in the galaxy exactly why humans had worked so hard to avoid large-scale warfare. Cooper had lost his wife and son in the Alpha Centauri massacre 2 years ago. They had been visiting his wife's sister on a research station when hegemony forces decided the facility was too close to disputed territory. The aliens had destroyed everything, including the evacuation ships trying to carry civilians to safety. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace at the hegemony homeworld of Vex Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. What appeared to be a standard exploration and supply convoy revealed itself to be the most advanced military force in known space. Ships that looked like civilian research vessels deployed swarms of autonomous fighters that moved with impossible speed and precision. Vessels that appeared to be cargo haulers opened their hulls to reveal weapons platforms that fired energy beams capable of cutting through planetary shields like they were made of tissue paper. Commander Kelly Ross led the orbital bombardment that disabled every military installation on 3 hegemony core worlds in a single coordinated strike. Her weapons teams had trained for this scenario for 15 years, while everyone believed they were conducting scientific research on stellar phenomena. The precision was terrifying in its absolute effectiveness. Not one civilian target was hit, but every single military asset was reduced to molten metal in exactly 17 minutes. Hegemony defense grids that had protected their worlds for centuries were neutralized before their operators understood what was attacking them. Captain Troy Adams commanded the forces that severed all hegemony communication networks in a single, synchronized assault. Human ships had been secretly mapping alien infrastructure for decades while conducting what appeared to be peaceful trade missions and cultural exchanges. The vast hegemony empire found itself isolated and defenseless within. Ours, core worlds could not communicate with colonial fleets. Military commanders could not coordinate responses to human attacks. Supply lines that had functioned for millennia were cut so efficiently that it seemed like magic to the aliens trying to understand their situation. Major Chris Johnson delivered the final ultimatum to surviving hegemony leadership from the bridge of his command ship in orbit above their capital city. His transmission was broadcast across every frequency and translated into every known galactic language so there could be no misunderstanding. Hegemony Council. This is Major Johnson of the Human Military Forces. Your empire no longer exists. Your fleets are destroyed, your communications are severed, and your military capabilities are eliminated. You have 1 hour to announce complete and unconditional surrender, or we will finish what you started. The images accompanying his message showed the wreckage of hegemony military power scattered across dozens of star systems. Fleets that had dominated space for centuries were reduced to debris fields. Fortresses that had never been successfully attacked were empty ruins drifting in space. Dr. Alex Carter analyzed the tactical results of Operation Thunderstorm from his research station that had been secretly monitoring the battle. Human forces had achieved total victory while suffering exactly 0 casualties. The technology gap between humanity and the hegemony was so vast that calling it a war was almost misleading. Admiral Cooper, the mathematical analysis is complete, Carter reported. Human military capabilities are approximately 400 years, more advanced than anything the hegemony possesses. Their weapons cannot penetrate our defensive systems. Their ships cannot escape our pursuit systems. They literally cannot harm us while we can destroy them at will. Lieutenant Colonel Dana Price oversaw the systematic capture of hegemony leadership for war crimes trials. Her teams moved through alien government centers with efficiency that amazed the prisoners. Humans had been studying hegemony command structures for years and knew exactly where to find every important official. The aliens were not mistreated or humiliated. but they were completely helpless. Human soldiers appeared wherever they tried to hide, moved through their security systems like they did not exist, and captured them alive while ignoring their attempts to resist or negotiate. General Frank Murphy coordinated the broader military operation that was dismantling hegemony power across the galaxy. Human forces were simultaneously attacking hundreds of targets with perfect coordination. Every assault succeeded completely and quickly moved to the next objective. All human commanders. This is General Murphy, he broadcast to forces across known space. Operation Thunderstorm is proceeding exactly as planned. Continue current operations until all hegemony military assets are neutralized. Remember, we are fighting to end this war, not to conquest territory or destroy civilians. The other galactic species watched in stunned silence as humans methodically destroyed a civilization that had dominated space for thousands of years. The creatures who preferred gardens and libraries had transformed into a military force that could reshape the galaxy according to their will. Ambassador Claire Watson addressed the Emergency Galactic Council session while human fleets were still eliminating the last hegemony strongholds. Her message was delivered with the same calm diplomatic tone she had always used, but the meaning was completely different now. Council members, humanity is ending this war today, Watson announced. The hegemony will cease to exist as a political entity within the next 6 hours. Their surviving population will be integrated into local planetary governments under council supervision. Their military leadership will face trial for genocide and war crimes. Captain Nick Phillips led the final assault on the Hegemony Command Center, where their High Council had gathered for a last desperate attempt at negotiation. His ships surrounded the facility, and his Marines prepared for what everyone expected to be a difficult urban combat operation. Instead, they found the alien leadership waiting in the central chamber with their hands raised in surrender. The Hegemony Council had finally understood that continuing resistance was not just futile, but completely meaningless. Human forces could destroy them at any time and any place they chose. We surrender unconditionally, Council leader Zexvar announced when Phillips entered the room. We request mercy for our civilian populations and promise complete compliance with human terms. Please end the destruction. Phillips looked at the aliens who had ordered the deaths of millions of humans and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Justice was being served and the galaxy would be safer when this was finished. The storm was ending, but its effects would reshape galactic civilization forever. Humanity had proven that peaceful species could be the most dangerous enemies when they were forced to abandon peaceful methods. The lesson would not be forgotten by anyone who survived to remember it. Marine Sergeant Amy Brooks coordinated the final security sweeps of hegemony territory to ensure no hidden military assets remained active. Her teams found evidence of planned attacks on human colonies that would have killed billions of people if the war had continued. The galaxy was learning that human restraint had never been weakness, but rather strength under perfect control. When that control was removed, the results were devastating. For anyone who had mistaken human kindness for human limitation, Admiral Cooper received the final surrender documents from every remaining hegemony commander across the galaxy. The war, that had started with genocide against human civilians, was ending with the complete elimination of the hegemony as a military and political force. The storm was over, and humanity stood revealed as the dominant power in known space. The surrender documents were signed in the ruins of the hegemony capital, while human ships maintained orbital positions above every former enemy world. The war that had started with attempted genocide against humanity ended with the complete dissolution of the most powerful empire in galactic history. Admiral Ben Cooper accepted the formal surrender from the surviving hegemony leadership in a ceremony that was broadcast across known space. The galactic hegemony ceases to exist as of this moment, Cooper announced to representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Their territory will be redistributed among local planetary governments. Their military assets are forfeit. Their leadership will face trial for war crimes including genocide against human civilian populations. The aliens who had ruled space for 1,000 years were led away in restraints while their former subjects watched in amazement. Species that had been oppressed by hegemony forces for generations could barely believe they were witnessing the end of their ancient tormentors. President Grace Miller addressed the human colonies via galactic broadcast from her office on Earth. Behind her were displays showing rebuilt settlements and new construction projects where hegemony attacks had once left only destruction. Humanity was already moving past the war and focusing on peaceful reconstruction. "Citizens of Earth and the colonies, we never wanted this conflict," Miller said with quiet dignity. "We tried every peaceful solution we could imagine. But when we were forced to fight, we fought to win completely and permanently. The threat to human survival has been eliminated." The galactic community was struggling to understand what they had witnessed. The species that valued peace above almost everything else had become absolutely ruthless when that peace was threatened. They had built their entire civilization around avoiding conflict, but when conflict became inevitable, they were prepared to end it with overwhelming force. Commander Pete Kelly oversaw the reconstruction efforts in former hegemony space. Human engineering teams were already working to repair the damage from the war and establish fair governments for the liberated populations. It was exactly what other species should have expected from the people who had spent decades helping others solve problems. "Admiral Cooper, the reconstruction timeline is ahead of schedule," Kelly reported from the former hegemony world of Tex Major. "Local populations are cooperating fully with transition plans. They seem genuinely relieved that the war is over, and their oppressive government is gone." Human forces did not occupy conquered territory in the traditional sense. They helped rebuild damaged infrastructure, established democratic institutions, and then prepared to leave. The concept of ruling through military force was alien to human thinking, even after demonstrating they possessed the most powerful military in galactic history. Dr. Megan Ross had been appointed as Chief Diplomatic Advisor for post-war reconstruction. Her teams were working with dozens of species to establish new political arrangements that would prevent future conflicts. The humans were determined to create lasting peace rather than temporary victory. "President Miller, we have received formal requests from 47 different species asking for human protection against potential future aggressors," Ross reported. "They understand that our military capabilities make us the natural peacekeepers for the galaxy." The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had been attacked for being too peaceful was now being asked to serve as galactic police force. Human leaders were carefully considering how to balance their desire for peaceful exploration with their responsibility to prevent other genocidal wars. The Galactic Council met in formal session to address the new political reality created by human military victory. Representatives from every major civilization gathered to witness the transformation of galactic power structures that had existed for millennia. Ambassador Claire Watson presented the human proposals for galactic governance that would replace the collapsed hegemony system. The plans focused on voluntary cooperation between equal partners rather than domination by any single species. But everyone understood that human military supremacy would enforce these peaceful ideals. Council members, humanity proposes a confederation of independent worlds united by common principles, Watson explained. Free trade, scientific cooperation, and mutual defense against aggression. No species will rule over others, and all disputes will be resolved through negotiation backed by collective enforcement. The new treaties included provisions that prohibited any species from threatening human colonies or citizens. The entire galaxy now understood that attacking humans would result in swift and overwhelming retaliation. The lesson had been taught permanently and would not need to be repeated. Captain Lisa Bennett commanded the human task force responsible for hunting down remaining hegemony war criminals who had escaped during the final battles. Her teams were working with local authorities to ensure that justice was served for the genocide that had triggered this war. "Admiral Morrison, we have located the final group of hegemony commanders who ordered the attacks on human civilian populations," Bennett reported. "They are requesting asylum from the Kree Federation, but local authorities are prepared to extradite them for trial. The war crimes tribunals were conducted with the same efficiency that had characterized human military operations. Evidence was presented clearly, justice was served swiftly, and the proceedings were open to galactic observation. Humanity wanted everyone to understand exactly why this war had been necessary. Lieutenant Sam Park coordinated the communication networks that kept human forces connected across the galaxy while they completed post-war operations. The technology that had made human military victory possible was now being adapted for peaceful purposes, including faster trade and scientific cooperation. "Sir, the new communication grid is operational across all former hegemony territory," Park reported. "Species that could barely communicate before can now coordinate trade missions and research projects in real time. The infrastructure we built for war is becoming the foundation for lasting peace." Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Kepler station watching ships from dozens of species trading peacefully, where hegemony forces had once built weapons for genocide. Human children played in the station gardens while alien visitors marveled at the transformation. "Did we do the right thing?" his aide Lieutenant Gary Stone asked while reviewing reports from across known space. The question reflected concerns that many humans shared about the path their species had been forced to take. Morrison watched a group of young aliens learning human languages from volunteer teachers who had lost family members in hegemony attacks. The scene represented everything that humanity had been fighting to preserve and protect. "We did what we had to do," Morrison replied with quiet certainty. "And now everyone knows the price of testing human patience. The galaxy is safer because people understand that peaceful species can be the most dangerous enemies when they are pushed beyond their limits." The new galactic order was built on a foundation of simple truth that no one would ever forget. Humans would always prefer kindness, cooperation, and peaceful solutions to problems. But when faced with extinction, they were prepared to ensure that those who threatened their families would never threaten anyone again. Colonel Beth Taylor deactivated the final sleeping giant protocols as human forces completed their transition back to peacetime operations. The hidden military capabilities that had won the war were being converted to civilian purposes or carefully stored for future emergencies that hopefully would never come. President Miller, all military assets have been successfully transitioned to peacetime configuration, Taylor reported. Human forces are ready to resume exploration and research missions. The galaxy is peaceful, and our people are safe. The war had lasted 8 months from the first hegemony attack to final surrender. The peace that followed would endure for generations, built on the understanding that humanity possessed both the desire for peaceful cooperation and the ability to enforce it against any threat. Children growing up in the new Galactic Confederation would learn about the war as a historical lesson about the consequences of genocide and aggression. They would also learn about human restraint and the importance of choosing peace whenever possible. The galaxy was safer now, and everyone understood exactly why.